So what if I told you that getting rich has almost nothing to do with how smart you are? Seriously, in this explainer, we're going to dive into Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money and unpack the surprising and often invisible forces that are really pulling the strings in our financial lives.
This one sentence right here basically flips most financial advice completely on its head. We're taught that finance is all about numbers, charts, and formulas like it's a hard science. But Housel says, nope, it's actually a soft skill. It's about psychology, and how you behave with money is so much more important than what you know on paper.
And this leads to a pretty wild question, right? If your IQ isn't the key, then what explains these crazy financial outcomes we see in the world? How on earth can a janitor build a massive fortune, while a financial genius, someone who should know better, loses everything? Well, let's dig in. To figure that out, let's look at the tale of two fortunes. We're talking about two real guys whose stories couldn't be more different, and they totally defy our expectations of who gets rich and who, well, doesn't. Okay, just look at this contrast. On one side, you've got Richard Fuscone, Harvard MBA, top executive at Merrill Lynch. The guy has all the credentials for success. And on the other side, Ronald Reed, a lifelong janitor and gas station attendant. Now, just looking at their resumes, who would you bet on to end up wealthier?
Fuscone's story is a total cautionary tale. The man was brilliant, so successful he retired in his 40s. But then his ego took over. He borrowed a ton of money to build this absolutely massive mansion. We're talking 11 bathrooms, 2 pools, even 2 elevators. The maintenance alone was over 90 grand a month. So when the 2008 crisis hit, that combination of massive debt and zero humility just wiped him out completely.
So Fuscone's genius didn't save him. What about the janitor, Ronald Reed? What was his secret? Well, it turns out his strategy was almost shocking in how simple it was.
Ronald Reed's life was the absolute polar opposite of Fuscone's. He worked with his hands, lived in the same modest house for decades, and his main hobby was chopping wood. No flash, no complexity, nothing. And yet, when he passed away, this humble janitor left behind an $8 million fortune. It absolutely stunned everyone who knew him.
So what was his incredible secret? Get this, it was almost laughably simple. He saved what little money he could. He invested that money in stable, well-known companies, the blue chip stocks. And then, and this is the hardest part for most people, he just waited. For decades, he let the magic of compounding, where your earnings start making their own earnings, do all the heavy lifting. That's how he turned a tiny stream of savings into a massive fortune.
And that's the whole point right there. The massive gap in their education and experience, it didn't matter. What mattered was their behavior. One was patient and humble, the other was greedy and overconfident. This, right here, is the heart of the psychology of money.
But hold on, it's not just about behavior. There's another layer to this whole thing, a powerful force that's completely outside our control, and it can make or break a fortune in an instant. And those forces are luck and risk. Think of them as two sides of the same coin. They play a huge role in everyone's financial story, no matter how smart or how disciplined you are.
Take Bill Gates. Back in 1968, he just happened to attend one of the only high schools on the entire planet that had a computer. And how did they get it? The school's Mothers Club bought it with $3,000 from a rummage sale. That single random event gave Gates a 1 in a million head start.
Actually, scratch that. Let's be more precise. The odds were way, way smaller. 1 in 303 million. That's how insanely rare it was for a teenager back then to have the kind of access Bill Gates did. It was pure dumb luck.
But luck has a dark, tragic sibling, risk. And for every incredible story of good fortune, there's an equally powerful story of how things can go horribly wrong, for reasons that have nothing to do with your decisions. Just think about Bill Gates' best friend at that same school, Kent Evans. By Gates' own admission, Kent was just as smart, just as skilled. They were going to go into business together. But Kent died in a mountaineering accident before he even graduated high school. Same one-in-a-million lucky circumstance of being at that school, but he got hit by risk instead of luck.
Okay, so we know behavior is key, but we also know that luck and risk can change everything. This makes us ask an even bigger question. What is the real goal of building wealth anyway? Let's take a minute to challenge one of the biggest myths out there.
Think about this for a second. When you see someone driving a flashy car, are you admiring them? Or are you just using their car as a prop in your own little fantasy about how much you'd be admired if you had it? It's a subtle but crucial distinction because it shows that we often mistake spending money for actually having wealth.
See, being rich is about having a high current income, and it often leads to spending a lot of that money on things, fancy cars, big houses, to show other people just how much you have. It's loud, it's conspicuous, it's visible.
But being wealthy, well, that's hidden. It's the money you haven't spent. It's the assets sitting quietly in your bank or brokerage account. And what does that hidden money buy you? It buys you freedom, it buys you actuals, it buys you control over your own time. And that is the real goal.
So, if the goal is to build that hidden wealth that buys you freedom, what's the single most powerful way to get there? Well, it turns out there's one simple concept that ties everything we've talked about together.
And here it is. Building real, lasting wealth has surprisingly little to do with how much you earn or how amazing your investment returns are. It has almost everything to do with your savings rate. That's the one lever you have the most control over, and it has the most dramatic impact.
This completely reframes the whole idea of saving. It's not really a math problem, it's a psychology problem. Your savings rate is simply the gap between your income and your ego. A huge income means nothing if your ego grows right along with it, because you'll just spend everything to keep up appearances. The real key to saving is humility.
And this is the ultimate purpose of saving money. You're not saving to buy a specific thing. You're saving to buy control over your time. You're saving to have options when life inevitably throws you a curveball. Ultimately, every dollar you save is you purchasing a little piece of your own independence.
So, we'll leave you with this thought. The highest form of wealth, the best dividend money pays, is the ability to wake up and say, I can do whatever I want today. No one telling you where to be or what to do. So the real question is, if you had that power, what would you do with it?